Relationship, reflection, and the balance of power are part of the new moon dynamic in July. Learn about why patience will be needed and how you can work with the astrology of the second half of July. Hello, I'm Lori Barnes, the astrologer who helps people find their true calling. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the upcoming Cancer new moon and the astrological activity for the rest of July. It's a busy month, astrologically speaking, with two significant events clarifying the energy vibration of the Cancer new moon. The first major event is the lunar nodes. They're changing signs, and this only happens around every 18 months, so it's a big deal. And the other major event is Venus is going retrograde on July 22nd. So we can't really talk about the new moon without considering all of the astrological activity and how it shapes the overall energy of the new moon. I want you to get the most out of this video. So if you don't already have a copy of your natal chart, please go and get a copy of it from one of the free online calculators. There's many out there. I personally like astro.com or astro-seek.com. You can use either of those or any site that you prefer. So when you have your chart, you're going to be able to see which astrological house the different planets are traveling through by the sign. And when you know which house they're in, you're going to get a lot more personal information for how this is going to show up for you. So if you're not familiar with the astrology houses, you can go to my reference page on my website for a quick overview of the topics, events, and people represented by each of the astrology houses. Now, remember, everything in our world falls in one of these houses. So if you have a question on something, see which house represents that thing. Let's get started with the new moon. It's in the sign of Cancer. Cancer is a water sign. It's an intuitive sign that relies heavily on instinct and often views the world through how things and people make them feel. It's a sign that operates on your emotion. And we all have Cancer somewhere in our chart. Think of where Cancer falls in your chart and then look at the people, topics, and events represented by that house. You can find that by looking at the glyph for Cancer. And if you're not sure of what that looks like, I also will include a link to a key so that you can easily see what the symbol means on your astrology chart that you can get for free online. And the Cancer part of your chart is where you're going to likely operate on a more emotional level with the topics, events, and people that are associated with that house. Some of the keywords for Cancer are nurturing, sentimental, protective, mothering, and they're kind of like the crab, tough on the outside while soft on the inside. And Cancer is one of the 4 cardinal signs, and those signs are about taking action and pivoting to the next thing. But of the 4, Cancer tends to take action in a more zigzag direction, like the crab, rather than straightforward, like our cardinal signs, Aries or Capricorn. And then the other cardinal sign is Libra. And all 4 of these cardinal signs are activated in July with the sun moving through Cancer, the new moon in Cancer, Pluto, which is retrograded back into Capricorn. And of course, it's opposite the sign of Cancer. They're a pair. And then Libra and Aries are activated because they will soon be hosting the lunar nodes, because they're going to be changing signs. All 4 of these signs are really active at the new moon. So it's just important that you look at your chart and see, where do these 4 signs fall? That's Cancer, Capricorn, Libra, and Aries. And I'm going to talk more about that throughout this video. There's quite a bit of activity in the second half of July, and I'd really like for you to get your chart in front of you so that you can take note of when anything in your chart is being aspected by what's happening in the sky. If you're not already familiar with those symbols, please be sure to check below, and I'm going to have that link so that you can, maybe you want to write them out on your chart so it's easy to find what I'm talking about. And if you don't have your chart in front of you at this point, please pause this video, go and get it, and come back so you have it in front of you. I'm going to refer to a few aspects in this video, and the aspects that I work with are the conjunction, and that's when planets are in the same sign. the opposition, and that's when planets are in opposing pairs of signs like Libra and Aries, Capricorn and Cancer, which is important because the new moon is in Cancer, and you have Leo, Aquarius are an opposing pair as well. And then there's the square, which is a 90-degree angle. It's like a right angle, and there's 360 degrees in the astrological circle. And then there's the trine, which is like a flowing, easy exchange of energy, and then the sextile, which is also a flowing type of energy, but it has more of an action signature. The square, I don't think I mentioned this, the square has a more like of a tension type of energy that is growth oriented and kind of pushes you to take action on something. So if any of these aspects that I talk about today are also aspecting something in your chart, then it's going to be really important for you. And if none of these aspects I talk about today are activating something in your chart, it won't be as potent, but these things are still happening in your chart. They're in the houses. For sure, somewhere out there in life, you're going to encounter someone who's activated by some of this July energy. And I can tell you that patience is called for this month or for the rest of the month. So whether it's you or someone a family member, your partner, you're probably going to run into some situations where there can be a bit of frustration. So I'm just letting you know in advance to intentionally use patience. Take a breath, take a moment before responding, because that's going to help you with this energy that we're going to go through for the rest of July. Okay, back to the new moon. We know that the new moon is in Cancer. And let me give you the date and time so you can mark this on your calendar. The Cancer new moon will take place at 24 degrees of Cancer on Monday, July 17th. And if you're on the west coast of the US, it's going to be at 11:32 a.m. in the morning. And that's 2:32 p.m. on the east coast of the US. And in Rome, Italy, where I usually broadcast from, it'll be 8:32 p.m. Today, I'm recording in central Illinois, where the new moon on Monday is going to be at 1:32 p.m. And new moons kick off a 4-week lunar cycle. New moons are a good time to set intentions for what you want to accomplish for the next 4 weeks. And for this particular Cancer moon, I recommend you set an intention to practice patience and caution, because some of this energy is pretty intense, can be frustrating and powerful, because Pluto is involved. Now, new moons are also a good time to rest a bit more and replenish, reset your energy, because we're under the dark moon in the sky. Resting is especially important before the exact new moon, because that's when the one lunar cycle is ending and going dark, and then preparing to be reborn under the new moon, and when the crescent kind of comes out after the new moon phase begins. Considering the sign change of the nose, and Venus is going into slow down mode, or is already slowing down for retrograde, and Saturn is already retrograde, I really can't stress enough how much patience is really going to pay off for you. I know patience isn't always easy to come by when you're frustrated, or you feel like activated and upset, or kind of like emotions are tied up in whatever is testing your patience. But if you pre-plan to respond to frustrating situations with patience, you are far more likely to come out on the other side of this energy in better shape than letting yourself react. And that's what you want to avoid, is reacting and then wishing that you had responded in a different way. Now, remember, it may not be you that's frustrated. I mean, it can be you, but it may not be you. You could just encounter more highly charged situations where other people are the frustrated ones, or other people are the ones that aren't using patience. So over the next few weeks, it's going to be better for you and everyone else around you if you practice some intentional self-control. Take the high road. Be a role model rather than the person everyone's looking at like, what the heck is up with them? Now, if we were talking about the Cancer new moon in a bubble, we'd be talking about nourishing and nurturing yourself, taking some me time or some family time, enjoying caregiving with those you love, doing bubble baths, strolls by the lake, baking cakes and brownies. But we're not in a Cancer new moon bubble, and there are other planetary placements going on that are demanding that we prepare for change in some part of our life. That speaks back to the nodes getting ready to change signs, and they'll be square the sun, they'll be square Pluto, and Venus is going retrograde. There's just a lot going on at this new moon. Now, that doesn't mean you can't take the bubble baths and the strolls by the lake and bake some brownies and, just enjoy yourself, nourish and nurture yourself. You definitely should do that. Those are great things to do for the new moon. It's just keep in mind that there are these other things going on that I'm going to go into detail on. Just take note of where these things are happening in your chart. Look at those houses. When I mention a sign, you're going to look to your chart and see which house it is. And if you don't know what that house means, go check out my website, because I have just a very quick reference where you can be like, oh, the third house is communication, or the seventh house is my partner, the third house is also your sibling, and the 10th house is your boss, and the sixth house is your employees. So if you know what house these activations or these planets are traveling through, you're going to be able to personalize it better for yourself. So let's go a little bit deeper on the nodes changing signs. The South Node has been traveling through Scorpio, and the North Node has been traveling through Taurus, and they've been traveling through those signs since January of 2022. Because the nodes move retrograde the majority of the time, when they go to change signs here on the new moon, they're going to go from 0 degrees to 29 degrees. The North Node in Taurus is going to go from 0 degrees of Taurus to 29 degrees of Aries, and then continue to go retrograde until it reaches 0 degrees of Aries over the next 18 months. And then the South Node traveling in Scorpio is going to go from 0 degrees of Scorpio to 29 degrees of Libra, and it'll continue to move backwards until 0 degrees of Libra over the next 18 months. So if you have the nodes in these positions in your natal chart, you're going to be having a nodal return where they come back to the same place in your chart as they were when you were born. So you want to look at your natal chart and see where the nodes were when you were born. Then you want to look at where Libra and Aries are in your chart, because that's where they're going to be moving into. And you can look at Scorpio Taurus in your chart, because that's where they were the last 18 months. And if you have the opposite, where you have the North Node in Libra and the South Node in Aries, you're going to be at the half cycle of the entire voyage of the nodes through your chart, from where they were when you were born. They go all the way around. So every 18 months you have a return. So if you have the North Node in Libra and the South Node in Aries, you're going to be at your half cycle. This can be a time where you gain greater awareness of what you're working on in this lifetime, since it's, it's kind of like looking at the mirror opposite of your natal placement. And either way, whether you're having a return or a half cycle, it's a great time for becoming aware of your destiny and purpose in this lifetime. I mean, really, it's a great time for you to become aware of where your nodes are in general. But those of you who have the Libra and Aries nodal placement, it's going to be an important 18 months for you. You could find that this period of time is about stepping into the growth of your North Node and out of the safety node of the South Node. Now I want to pause here and give you a bit of information on what the nodes mean in your chart. So this is just generally what the nodes mean in your chart. The nodes are points in the sky, but they're not physical bodies. They're the 2 points where the circular orbit of the sun and the circular orbit of the moon meet. So if you're looking at 2 intersecting circles, it's the 2 points where they are at the opposite sides of the diameter. And the South Node is one of past karma. It's about past karma, gifts and talents you were born with. It has family and generational karma associated with it. It's about unresolved issues that you're tasked to work out in this lifetime. So how do you do that? How do you work on that karma? Well, it's through the North Node. So the North Node is about new horizons for you to work on during this lifetime. It holds the solution to resolving that South Node stuff. So when you're working on your North Node, you'll find that the South Node stuff kind of like starts resolving and becomes complementary to your North Node. But if you stay in the familiar and safe South Node territory, you're not growing. You can start to feel stagnant or like you're missing out on fulfilling your life purpose. And this becomes more prevalent, I think, the older that you get. And maybe when you're younger, you'll be more comfortable doing the South Node stuff because it's more familiar. But as you get into the adult world, and especially after your Saturn return, it's really important that you are aware of what the North Node is calling you to do, because sometimes you're not even aware of what that is. And like you have that feeling like, well, something's missing. What is it? Your North Node is going to give you some information about that. Now, it's not the end all, but it's one of the important things that's going to give you information about your destiny and your meaning meaning and purpose in life. And there's a handful of different parts of your chart to look at for that. So you would want to definitely consider that in terms of your whole chart. We don't really ever look at just one thing by itself. We look at that and how it synthesizes with everything else in your chart. So now the North Node's calling you, but it's unfamiliar territory. This is how you get to resolve that karma that you come into this lifetime with. It can be scary. It can come with growing pains, and it can challenge you. But once you step into this new territory and you start growing and developing something new, you're going to find that life starts unfolding in a way that's really worth the effort that you put into it. The nodes are really important for understanding your natal chart, and the moving nodes are important to watch as they travel around the zodiac. So even if the nodes aren't making an aspect to any of your natal placements, the topics of the houses that the nodes are transiting through or traveling through are going to give you information for understanding the current events happening in your life right now. And it also help you understand just what's going on in the greater world that we all live in. So the nodes are changing signs around a half an hour after the new moon is exact. The node sign changes are very much baked into this Cancer new moon. So now let's talk about Pluto and the cardinal signs Capricorn, Cancer, Libra, and Aries, because these 4 signs are really activated at the new moon and for the rest of July. And that's mainly because the planet Pluto has retrograded back into Capricorn. It was a big deal back in March when Pluto moved into Aquarius, but Pluto's gone retrograde and now it's back in Capricorn, and it's traveling through the 29th degree of Capricorn. And Pluto moves really slow. It's the slowest moving planet that we have, and it's going to retrograde back to 27 degrees of Capricorn. So 27, maybe 26 degrees to 29 degrees of Capricorn are sensitive at this time and will be for a while. And Pluto is going to go direct in October, and it'll be in the range, aspecting the nodes through October. It's a long-term aspect that we're talking about, but it's starting right at this new moon when the nodes change signs. Pluto in Capricorn makes a square to both Libra and Aries. And, these are the 2 signs that the nodes are moving into. This is going to happen on Monday, the 17th, right after the new moon. Even though they've been in range from a degree perspective for a while now, it was out of sign. Now, some astrologers they don't acknowledge aspects that are out of sign, and some do. So I personally only use in-sign aspects, but that's a personal choice. And if you are a professional astrologer or a student astrologer, then you're going to decide how you want to work with that. But I don't consider them in range when they're out of sign. So as soon as those nodes move into Libra and Aries, they are going to be right exactly in aspect to that Pluto. Even though they're very close right now, it's an out of sign aspect. You may have been feeling the buildup of energy because it is very close by a degree. So this will be an exact square between Pluto and the nodes. And Pluto will be square both Libra and Aries, and this is a highly potent aspect. It's even more exaggerated at the new moon because the sun and moon are in Cancer, and that's across from Capricorn. So those are our 4 cardinal signs. That's why I'm saying that the cardinal signs are really activated by this new moon. This is especially true for any placements you have in your chart that are in the late degrees of any of the cardinal signs: Cancer, Capricorn, Libra, and Aries. So look at your chart, see where those 4 signs are, and see if there's anything there that's in the late degrees. So you could look at 26, 27, 28, 29 degrees. And if you have anything in those degrees, you have an activation happening. It's really intense energy. So remember that we all have these 4 signs in our chart. Even if you don't have any planets there, you can look at the houses to see which houses the 4 signs are occupying, and that's going to tell you how or where you may see some of this energy show up for you. Even if you don't have a planet there, it's okay. Empty houses still are part of you and part of your life. They don't mean that nothing's happening. So definitely look at your chart and see where they are. So we have squares and oppositions happening. And it's really a tension kind of aspect, and it's kind of like pushing us to take action because we want to get relief. And that's why the more difficult aspects are good, because we want these tension producing types of aspects. They push us to grow and step up and take action. It may bring some discomfort and frustration, but let's face it, when things are easy and calm, we have no motivation to make a change. And that's why easy aspects aren't always the best thing for us, and challenging aspects are not always a bad thing. Can they be difficult? Sure, but they inspire us to grow. So some of the ways this may play out is that you may feel pushed into change. You may be pushed internally from within yourself, where you want to make something better in your life. Or it can come from an external event, something happening that forces you to make a change. It can be about work, family, a hobby, or something else. Depends on what house. And it can make you feel driven to make a transformation. The planet Pluto is often associated with transformation, but really Pluto is about the catalyst for change that results in a transformation. Pluto activations often have some sort of power theme. It can be you feeling like someone has power over you, or you can try to have power over someone or something else. But really the best way to work with power and power situations is through empowerment. You empower others, and hopefully you can be empowered by others. So look at these 4 houses that hold the cardinal signs: Capricorn, Cancer, Libra, and Aries. And that's where you're going to most likely run into this energy in your life. You want to take it easy the last half of July. You want to practice intentional patience. And you want to remember that you're likely to run into others with a short fuse if it's not you. Or it could be you and someone else, which is, again, patience. Patience is really important. You're in the know. You know what the energy is that's going on right now. So you have the power to diffuse a situation. I mean, you could throw fuel on the fire, but now that you know about this, patience is the key word for the last half of July. I highly recommend you use a lot of patience. So for the week of the new moon, the sun in Cancer is opposite this Pluto and Capricorn placement. And these 2 planets are both going to square those nodes, which is also called being at the bends. If you're a student, you're going to look at that Cancer and Capricorn part of your chart. And where the sun in Cancer is, you may find that your vitality may be a bit lower than usual in that area. Whatever house Cancer is for you, the topics, events, and people associated with that house is where you may find that you have lesser vitality, because the sun is about our vitality. Now, this energy that I've been talking about with the sun and Pluto and the nodes is extra potent on July 22nd, because that's when the sun is actually at 29 degrees of Cancer. And you know that Pluto's already at 29 degrees of Capricorn. And then we have the nodes moving through 29 degrees. So that is a day to be especially careful. And then the sun's going to move into Leo shortly after that, taking a little pressure off of this intense and active nodal sign change. And that's going to happen on July 23rd. So, almost a week after the new moon. So, we'll have that intensity added on by the sun for almost a week, and then the sun's going to move on. But the Pluto nodes thing, that's going to last for a while. So the sun's moving into Leo. And speaking of Leo, that takes us to the second major event happening in July, and that is Venus is going to go retrograde in the sign of Leo. So look at your chart, see where Leo is in your chart. What house does Leo occupy? That's going to tell you a lot of more information and make it personal to you, because it's going to let you know what part of life the Venus retrograde is going to be active in, and what people, what relationships you're going to want to pay attention to. Now, if you're a Leo rising, which is all about you, it can be more about your relationship with yourself. But of course, unless you live like a hermit and you don't interact with anyone, your relationship with yourself is going to spill over into how you relate to others. So this is a Venus retrograde. Venus is about relationships and your relating style, and it's going to go retrograde. All retrogrades ask us to slow down, take a pause, reflect, refine, realign, depending on what the planet represents. Now with Mercury, we always look at our communication style, business and commerce, and technology. With Mars retrograde, we look at how we take action in the world. We look at our inner determination and will, and we try to figure out what old, outworn ways of doing things need to be cut out. So now when we're talking about Venus retrograde, that has to do with how we relate to others in life. So even if you're a Leo rising and it's your relationship with yourself, it still comes back to relationships with others. You're going to benefit by working with Venus retrograde and not ignoring it. Now, if you have relationships with unresolved business, Venus retrograde is a great time to get those things out in the open and start working on solutions. This ties into the nodal change that I've been talking about before, because remember that the South Node is moving into Libra, and Libra is one of Venus's signs. There's this double message happening around relationships. The best resolutions for unfinished business in any of your relationships is to find solutions that work for both parties. This is not a time to insist on getting things to go your way if that leaves the other person feeling left out, unheard, or compromised. There's usually more than my way or your way solutions. You want to find a solution that both parties are satisfied with. Now, compromise has its place. Libra is all about compromise, but so does mutual satisfaction. And that's really what I'm talking about here, is finding mutual satisfaction, not where it's their way or your way, and those are your only two options. Look at option 3, option 4, option 5. Keep trying to find solutions where both people are like, yeah, that's good. I'm happy with that. That's what you're looking for. Okay, so Venus will go retrograde on July 22nd, and it's already been in its pre-shadow period since June 20th. It's going to stay retrograde until September 3rd. It's going to go direct, and then it will go back over the same degrees that it covered when retrograde, and that's the post-shadow period, and that is going to end on October 7th. Those are the dates for your calendar. With Venus retrograde, take some time, dig into your relationships. You don't have to day one of retrograde, go out and try to resolve things, take some time. A retrograde is about introspection. So take some time, introspect, think it over, and then go out and talk with the people you have unfinished business with. Do it under the Venus retrograde. That's a perfect time to go and clear the air. In the sign of Leo, you can tap into some creative ideas, and you can find that you're very passionate about resolving some business, because those are Leo words, passion and creativity. Now, Venus, the planet, makes a fascinating pattern in her retrograde cycle. And it's such a big topic. I would have to do a whole other video on that. But I already know that a few exist that I think are very good. So I'm going to give you a link to a video on Venus retrograde, just so you can learn more about this Venus retrograde pattern. It makes like this really pretty 5-point star in the sky, or a petal. They sometimes call it the Venus petal. But I will tell you just a couple of things that I think will help you work with the Venus retrograde. Venus goes retrograde in the same sign near the same degree every 8 years. So you can look back 8 years ago when Venus was last retrograde in Leo, and that would be July 25th of 2015 to September 5th of 2015. You can look back to see if there's some recurring themes. Of course, the other planets are going to be in different configurations, so it's not exactly the same, but you'll definitely be able to pick up on some patterns by looking backward. So I hope that helps you prepare for and think about how you want to go through the Venus retrograde and use it to help you find some resolutions to any unresolved business or unresolved issues that you have in relationships in your life. Now I want to briefly touch on a couple of other aspects happening around the time of the Cancer new moon. We have Mercury traveling through Leo around the time, or at the time of the new moon, and it's going to square Jupiter. And this is a really fast moving aspect. It could even pass by without notice. But considering the tension that's coming up with all that I've already talked about, I wanted to point out that Mercury is the planet that's about communication, and Jupiter is the planet that's about growth and expansion, which means that you really want to watch what you say, watch what comes out of your mouth. Things can be blown up bigger than they need to be. You could say something out loud that you really meant to think to yourself. To further this message, Mercury is going to keep on moving, and it's going to square Uranus on Sunday, July 23rd. So shortly, a week after the new moon. Mercury, the planet of communication, and Uranus is like the planet that's the wild card. So it's about sudden and unexpected things. So that means sudden and unexpected things could slip out of your mouth. Or you could be on the other end where somebody else is, running their mouth when they probably wish they had just kept quiet. So you are forewarned and informed. Just kind of be careful. Back to patience. Think first before you speak so that you don't end up saying something that you later wish you hadn't said. And remember that Venus is going retrograde in Leo. Mercury is going to make these aspects in the sign of Leo. So whatever is said, whatever is being communicated is highly likely to be connected with what the Venus retrograde means for you, because it's all in Leo. So definitely look at where Leo is in your chart, what house Leo occupies in your chart. Look at the people, topics, and events associated with that house, and that's going to help you personify what the Venus retrograde is likely to bring up for you. Having Mercury in Leo can also help give you the courage to speak up and speak your truth. Maybe it's been difficult for you to let your voice out. With Venus retrograde, it's going to give you more time and introspection to think about, and Mercury there is going to help you get that out. Even if it's been difficult in the past to speak up for yourself, this can be a time where you are able to actually get the words out. And you may even be surprised with how well you're able to verbalize what's been brewing inside of you for a while. It's time to let it out, but please do it in a kind and caring way. Leo's known to be passionate and creative, as I said before, so you can be passionate and creative with what you have to share. Things to watch out for are being condescending and cranky, especially if you feel like you haven't received enough recognition and that's what you're really needing. People are really unlikely to give you that recognition if you're speaking to them in a condescending tone. So do be careful about how you relay what you want to say. Let it out, but just be careful with how you say it. And then the last aspect that I wanted to mention is that Mars at 6 degrees of Virgo is going to be opposite the planet Saturn. And that's going to happen on July 21st. And this is a fast moving aspect, but it's a challenging one and one that you want to pay attention to. Mars in Virgo can get lost, just putting too much energy into the details and being perfect or perfectionism. While Saturn over there in Pisces is trying to put structure to the big overall picture. Saturn is retrograde, so it's slower to manifest its work and it's more introspective when it's retrograde. So this is really more of a frustrating type of configuration. You may find that a lot of energy is spent with little to no progress, but it'll pass after a few days. So take it easy. Try not to go down the rabbit hole of non-productive details. I did want to mention that Mercury is going to go retrograde next month. And I'm going to give you those dates so that you can get them on your calendar. The pre-shadow period for Mercury retrograde starts on August the 3rd. You can start feeling the effects of the retrograde as early as August the 3rd. It's going to go retrograde on August the 23rd, and then Mercury will go direct on September the 15th when it goes into its post-shadow period where it's going over those same degrees that it retrograded through. That post-shadow period is going to end on September 30th. That means that you're going to have the chance to work through both Venus and Mercury retrogrades at the same time. And these two planets are really important. All planets are important, but these two planets are important because they're personal. They're about you. Mercury is about your communication style. Venus is about your relating style. So when they go retrograde, I work with them by themselves. The house that they retrograde in becomes very important because the planets are going to spend a longer time in this area of your chart than usual. So you want to take a look at the Leo part of your chart for the Venus retrograde, and Mercury is going to go retrograde in Virgo. So you're going to want to look at the Virgo part of your chart for the Mercury retrograde. And I'm going to talk a lot more about the Mercury retrograde next month. I just wanted to give you the dates so you can be prepared. Okay, I'm going to leave you with a few inspirational quotes about patience, something we all will need a lot of as we move through the second half of July. As Edmund Burke says, patience will achieve more than force. And here's another one from Saadi, S-A-A-D-I, who says, have patience. All things are difficult before they become easy. And this last one really speaks to the astrology configurations coming up at the Cancer new moon, and it's from Mary Pierce, who says, sometimes things aren't clear right away. That's where you need to be patient and persevere and see where things lead. I like that a lot. All right, I know that was a lot of information that I've shared with you. I hope this helps you plan for your second half of July. I hope you were looking at your chart so you have a better idea of how this energy will show up for you by looking at the houses. I really appreciate you watching this video. And if you enjoyed what you watched today, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. If you would like a personal astrology consultation with me, where you can learn about the nodes in your chart or what to expect from the retrogrades or just a better understanding of your natal chart, please schedule a consultation with me at loribarnesastrology.com, or you can email me at hello@loribarnesastrology.com. That's LORIBARNES astrology. I'll include the links below. I wish you much patience and an introspective Venus retrograde. I'll see you next time for the astrology forecast for the first half of August and the upcoming full moon in Aquarius. Ciao.